Time.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Sweat the Bet podcast, brought to you by OddsJam.com. OddsJam is where you go to find some powerful, smart betting tools for sharp bettors like positive EV betting, arbitrage betting, finding the best lines by saving you the time of shopping lines. So check out OddsJam.com. I am your host of Sweat the Bet, Andrew Kim, aka the Parlay Doc. My co-host here is Matt Modi. What's up, Matt?
Doing well, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing good. So to kick off today's show, I know everyone is geared up for March Madness and for the tournament to continue. But today, we're going to be talking and we're going to be going in depth about the NBA, the Western Conference play-in scenario. So we're going to break down the potential play-in scenarios of some of the bottom-seeded teams fighting for those spots, trying to avoid the play-in, who's going to barely sneak in and make it into the play-ins, and just kind of going through some hypotheticals of how the outcomes might be. So that's going to be the meat and potatoes of our show, so stay tuned for that. We're obviously going to go over our best bets for the primetime game tonight between the Nuggets and the Suns. And to kick it off, we're going to kick it off with our typical sweat, no sweat segment of our show. So I will kick it off, Matt. So sweat, no sweat. With the huge trades that have been happening this offseason in the NFL, obviously one of the big ones that just happened was Tyreek Hill being sent over to the Dolphins for a bunch of different draft picks. So my sweat, no sweat is Tyreek Hill, being the stud that he is, now that he's going to be there on the Dolphins, he is going to unlock the potential that people have seen in Tua Tagovailoa finally, and Tua will be unlocked and unleashed finally now that Tyreek is there. And you have a legitimate weapon. Tua will be unlocked. Sweat or no sweat?
I'm sorry, guy. I got to go with the sweat on that one. I am not a Tua guy. Talking about the potential that people have seen, where have they seen it? Which games have they seen it? What is he going to go unlocked from like average depth of target from 2 yards to 4 yards now that he has one of the best deep threats in the NFL? I get why the Dolphins did it. You surround your young quarterback with as many options as you can get. Kind of like, you see that with the Eagles did it with Carson Wentz. You saw that the Bears went out and got Allen Robinson when they had Mitch Trubisky. I get it. I'm not a Trubisky guy. I don't think it's going to end well for them. I still think they got holes on the offensive line, even with the Terran Armstead signing. So I'm going with, I think that's going to be a sweat.
Me too. I just said it because I wanted to hear someone else rag on Tua. I think Tua sucks, honestly. That's my personal opinion. He seems like a nice guy, but skill-wise, in terms of like long-term potential, being a stud QB, I think there's a difference between serviceable. I don't even know if serviceable, honestly, but I don't think he's that great of a QB. And like I think you're going to surround him with weapons. It's going to fall flat, and I think they're going to come to the realization that they got to replace him with someone else. That's how I see it. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be a huge sweat. I know that they got to make moves, but I'm not a huge Tua believer. So
me neither. Yeah, me neither. How sad you think the Dolphins are? 3 QBs go in the top 6. One of them is Justin Herbert. Obviously, Joe Burrow goes number 1. Dolphins are stuck with Tua Tagovailoa. That's gotta hurt.
yeah, exactly.
All right. So for mine, I'm sticking with the NBA. And this is going to do a little preview of what we're going to be talking about. But my sweat or no sweat is I think the Lakers, the joke of the Los Angeles Lakers, don't even make the play-in tournament. I think they drop to the 11 seed, miss the play-in tournament entirely.
Oh, man.
Could you imagine?
I can imagine. Okay. I would say I would say sweat, because part of the research I did today for our play-in scenarios, I actually sat there and mapped out and just, I'm just sitting there guessing, but I mapped out all the wins and losses for all of the seeds from 6 through 11. And I think the Lakers will barely make it in. Just from my own kind of record predictions of wins losses, I think they're going to sneak in as the 10th. They're going to barely make it into the playoff at number 10 and just squeak in just to stay alive to battle for that final seeding of the playoffs. So I think they will make it into the play-in at the very least. So
disgusting. But I mean, yeah, they're the 9 seed. They're the 9 seed right now. They'd have to drop 2 spots, but I mean, just talk about a mockery of a season that team's having.
Yeah, I mean, look, man. I mean, yesterday, that game versus Philly, which thank you, Philly, and thank you to your Philly guys for hitting those props for me with Tobias and with Maxey. But if I don't know if they can just play with that kind of teamwork and passion and effort when LeBron's on the floor.
I know
you have something. I'm not saying that you're a dominant team, you're gonna make a deep run, but like you got something. So I just don't get it. So we'll see what happens, when LeBron's back in the mix. But I was just like, they actually played okay. I mean, there are a lot of turnovers, some sloppy basketball, but you saw max effort. It wasn't from a lack of effort last night. So they just don't have the firepower when you don't have LeBron there versus a legit team like the Sixers. So.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, going into that game, I was expecting the Lakers to get blown out because Embiid, he's always talked about how the Lakers were his favorite team growing up. So if you look at his stats in his career against the Lakers, he always plays the best against the Lakers. And the Sixers in general have some pretty good wins for when the Lakers were actually good. Like the championship year, the Sixers beat them. Last year, before the wheels fell off and AD and LeBron got hurt, the Sixers beat them. So I thought it was going to be a bigger blowout than it was. It was actually relatively close. So good on them. I just think, we'll get to it later, but I just think we've seen random signs of life from the Lakers, and then they'll lose to the freaking Rockets, and then they'll lose to Oklahoma City twice, and they'll get blown out by the Clippers by 21 and the Suns by 29 and the Timberwolves by 20. It's just, I think there's too much just grotesque basketball there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'll admit, like, I'm glad I didn't post it for some of the people who follow me on social media. But last minute, I was just like, oh, this is the no-brainer. And I bet the Sixers wire to wire. But of course, they come off to that horrendous start, and you have Monk and all these guys shooting hot in the beginning. Yeah, so I literally, in the first quarter, I lose my wire to wire bet on the Sixers.
And then they would have been wire to wire after that.
Exactly.
So frustrating.
So trust me, I'm with you on. I was just like, oh, this is easy. This is the easiest bet ever, and of course, I lose it within 12 minutes. So that's how it goes.
Well, at least it's not one. It's not. I mean, the name of the podcast, "Sweat the Bet." At least you didn't have to sweat that one out.
That is true. All right. So that is a good segue. That leads us into our meat and potatoes, the main portion of our show. And like I said, today we're just talking about one topic. We're focusing on the Western Conference playoff scenarios and the play-in scenarios. So to break it down, so to give everybody context, obviously you could just hop onto like ESPN or something. I think the relevant conversations are going to be the current 6 through 11 seeds right now. Okay. So again, for those of you who aren't familiar, you're kind of relatively new to watching NBA or sports betting, and the playoff scenarios have changed in recent years. Now we have this thing called the play-in, where if you're seeded 1 through 6 in your conference, you're going to avoid the play-in. If you're ranked 7 through 10, you are in what's called a play-in scenario. Teams that are in the 7th and 8th position will have to play each other. The winner of that locks in the 7th seed. The loser of the 7th and 8th battle will have to battle the winner of 9 and 10. And then the winner of that will then lock up the 8th and final slot of the playoffs, basically. So that gives extra rest to the teams that are ranked 1 through 6. And then obviously that gives an advantage to the top seeds like the Suns, who've locked that in, because now you're playing a team on extra rest, and they've just kind of battled even more in this play-in. So you even have that much more incentive to win and avoid this play-in scenario. So that's to kind of give you context there. So right now, if the season were to end today, and obviously these rankings might shift even later tonight after some of these teams battle it out, but right now, as things stand as of last night, number 6, the Denver Nuggets, are 43-30. They would avoid the play-in just barely. They're the 6th seed right now. The ones that are in the play-in scenario are number 7, the Minnesota Timberwolves at 42-32. The Clippers are in the 8th position at 36-38. LA Lakers are 9th, as Matt said, 31-42. The New Orleans Pelicans are barely hanging on at 30-42. And in the 11th seed, they're on the outside looking in, trying to grasp and claw into that final play-in scenario, are the San Antonio Spurs at 29-44. Okay, so that is your numbers 6 through 11. So let's kick this off. Let's start at the upper end of the seedings right now. So the 6-7 position. So I'm going to ask you this, Matt, to start off our conversation. So will the Nuggets... will they avoid the play-in? Can they hold on to that final non-play-in position and hold on to that number 6 seed? Or will the Timberwolves, who are relatively hot lately, will they overtake them and then have the Nuggets forced to be in that play-in scenario?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's really unfortunate for whoever gets the 7th seed because there's such a gap between the 7th and 8th. Like, there's no way the Nuggets or the Timberwolves are probably going to get caught by the 8th seed right now, which is the Clippers. So they're pretty locked into either the 6 or the 7, which is good for the Timberwolves. I mean, like, that team's been such a joke for so long. They had one good year with Jimmy Butler. They've been terrible every other year since they traded Kevin Garnett. So good on them. Going into this, I was ready. I mean, I love Jokic, so I was ready to back the Nuggets and say I think that they're going to be able to hold on. But doing more research, I actually think that the Timberwolves are going to catch them. I was surprised. So you said that the Timberwolves are relatively hot. They're 8-3 in their last 11. They were 8-2, but they just lost to Phoenix last night, which you really can't fault them for that. They play the Nuggets, so obviously that'll have a huge impact on how things go. In terms of strength of schedule, it's pretty even. Timberwolves have the 14th most difficult. Nuggets have the 18th, so that's pretty negligible. But just looking at like advanced analytics, I was surprised to see how high the Timberwolves were ranked. They're 8th overall in the entire NBA in net rating for the whole season. So it's not just filtering out for a recent hot streak or anything. They're above the Nuggets, who are 11. They're above the Sixers. They're above the Mavericks. They're 6th in offense, 11th in defense, which I was shocked because the MO on the Timberwolves for years, pretty much in Cat's entire career, was they're always terrible on defense. They got some players. Jared Vanderbilt is a good defensive player. They have a rising star in Anthony Edwards. Cat is already a star. I'm not a D'Lo guy. I kind of think he blows, but he can blow up for once every 5 games, give them a win. So I think the T-Wolves are going to catch them. So they're only, like you said, they're a game and a half back right now. Obviously, and they play each other. So really, they just need to, assuming they win that game, which obviously you can't assume, but if they win that game, they just have to have one more game advantage over the Nuggets in order to catch them. So I think the Timberwolves catch them. What about you?
Yeah, I actually, all of the above, everything you said, I agree with that. And just the fact they're kind of they're coming into form, kind of catching this like mini heater right at the perfect time. And I actually sat there and, like I said, I actually mapped it out. The key is that game they're going to play each other. And I actually will give that dub to the Wolves. So I think that's a crucial factor. When I kind of sat there mapping it out, I have the Nuggets ending the season at about 46-36. And I have the Wolves overtaking them at 47-35. So I actually am going to say that the Wolves are going to overtake them, and they're going to avoid the play-in. And Jokic, unfortunately, and the Nuggets, I think they're going to end up in that 7th seed and have to go through another grinding play-in, which stinks because, look, man, I mean, he's a one-man wrecking crew. But you see it in those games. Sometimes, not all games, but sometimes in those tight games when they really need to ride them even more than they are in that fourth quarter. I mean, sometimes, he's gassed, and you could just see. I mean, he falls into that. I'm just going to jack up threes because I'm too tired to post up, to drive, or do my little spin move. So he's just sitting on the outside hoping one of these threes falls, which I don't blame him because you can only carry a team so much, right? So if they have to then end up in a play-in, I mean, I have concerns for them that they may just catch a bad beat, and how much will he have left in the tank when other teams are then giving max go, full go, ride or die in a game? Can he sustain that energy level when he's been carrying them all season long, basically? And will it finally catch up to him? So I do think the Wolves are going to overtake them. So I think, unfortunately, I think the Nuggets are going to have to be in the play-in scenario and play the Clippers, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. It is unfortunate. I mean, if you just look at that roster up and down, they have Jokic, who's obviously incredible, and then outside of him, without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter Jr., they really just don't have a lot. I mean, I like Bones Highland. He's fun. I like Monte Morris, but none of those players are really moving the needle that much. So I think it could be a bad beat for them. I totally agree. So and I also think that like the Timberwolves are catching a hot streak, obviously at the right time. I mean, in those 3 losses I mentioned, they lost to Phoenix last night. They also lost in James Harden's first start in with the Sixers. So I mean, that team was so jazzed up to play. So they just mopped the floor with the Timberwolves. But other than that, I mean, some pretty impressive wins in that stretch. Obviously, they blew out the Lakers, which, I mean, as much trash as we've given them, they still blew them out. So yeah, I mean, I think the Timberwolves have a bright future. finally, after years of just wallowing with Cat there. And yeah, I think I'm with you. I think they catch him.
Yeah, and then D'Lo. I'm not the hugest like D'Lo fan in terms of his game. I mean, I think he's fun to watch, and I will say, out of respect, like I feel like he's found a good balance where he's kind of, not every game, but a lot of the games he's kind of playing within the system, playing that facilitator role, focusing on kind of dishing it out to teammates. I think, as fun as it was in the past, in the games where like he's just shooting whatever 14 threes and trying to gun for like 30 points in a bench player role. I mean, as cool as that is when you're a better, hoping that he's going to hit you some enormous ladder prop of like, plus 800 at 5 threes, like from a team perspective and, helping your team win. I think he's found a nice little groove and balance with kind of his role right now. So if he can stay within that, it's obviously beneficial for the team. So now let's shift a little bit. Let's talk about the bottom portion of the seeding. So I'll kick it off. So the question is, will the Pelicans, can they maintain at number 10, or will the Spurs overtake them? So again, right now, with only a few games left, the Spurs are 1.5 back of the Pelicans. My thought is, again, I mapped out their schedules, and you're looking who they have to play. I think it's going to be a little rough for the Spurs. They have a crucial game against the Pelicans themselves. I am going to give the Pels that one. So I think that's already going to set them back quite a bit, and then it's an uphill battle. I think the Spurs will beat the Rockets. They'll lose to the Grizz. They're going to fortunately play Portland twice and get 2 W's there.
They just played them too.
And they just destroy them.
Yeah.
Those are automatic wins in my mind.
Yeah.
You're going to play the Nuggets, and I have a feeling the Nuggets are playing for their lives to avoid this play-in, so I think the Nuggets will take that one. So I think that'll be a tough one. I think they lose to the Wolves. And then there's going to be some variability. It's really going to depend. I think this is going to be a big factor too. At the end of the season, they play the Warriors and the Mavericks. And depending on if those are meaningful or meaningless games for those teams, and if they're just like mailing it in to rest their starters, maybe the Spurs get lucky, right? I don't know. So that part, it's going to depend on what happens to those two teams and whether they're going to rest their players in the last 2 games of the season. But I still think overall, they're going to end up about 33-49. And they're going to just kind of barely miss making it in. So that's my take. I think the Spurs are going to be on the outside and they're not going to sneak in. What are your thoughts about the Spurs maybe trying to make that final play-in spot?
Yeah, I think they have a chance, mainly because I think the wheels are just going to fall off from under the Lakers. I mean, they have
that's right, the Lakers theory. The Lakers.
Yeah, that's my whole thing. It's not faith in the Spurs. I actually do like this Pelicans team, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But the Lakers, they have the second hardest remaining schedule in the NBA. They have to play the Pelicans, and then here's the list of teams they play: Dallas, Utah, Pelicans again, Denver, Phoenix, Golden State, which you would say is a win, but they lost to them twice already. Yep. And then Denver. So they play. It's like they only have one bad team in that stretch, and every other team they play is either decent in the Pelicans or legitimately good in pretty much the rest of their schedule. And there's one thing we've seen from this Lakers team is that they don't handle adversity well. So I mean, I could just see this being an end to the season where LeBron's pissed off because Russell Westbrook is just out, like Westbrook is doing exactly what that name suggests. He's picking shots left and right. And I mean, like the Lakers are 31-42 right now. I would be shocked if they won more than 3 of those remaining games. So all really that needs to happen is the Spurs to catch. I think the Spurs are 2.5 games back or 2 games back. So all they need to do is win 2-3 more games than the Lakers, which I don't think is impossible, especially like you said, they get Houston in there, they get Portland twice, so you can give them 3 wins most likely. And then at the end of the year, Golden State at the end of the year, I mean, I have a hard time believing that they're going to try and take it that serious.
Yeah, knowing Steve Kerr, I agree with you there. Yep.
Yeah, so that's my take. That's why I have the Spurs catching the Lakers, not because it's anything special with the Spurs. I think they'll probably they're 5-5 in their last 10. They're like the most perfectly average team in the NBA. They have the 18th best net rating, 15th on offense, 18th on defense. They're just like perfectly average. I like some of their players. Like I think DeJounte Murray is awesome. I think he's really good. Jakob Poeltl is like, he'll rack up stats. He's fine. I liked Derek White, obviously, who they traded to the Celtics. But mainly, I think I have the Spurs making it because, like I said, I think the wheels just fall off on the Lakers. And I do like that Pelicans team. I mean, we can talk about them next. They started in 14, kind of just like Zion weirdness. And then they've pretty much been fine since. They've been like 500 since, which isn't bad. I looked them up, like since that starts, like since December 1st, they have like the 14th best net rating in the NBA. So it's not like incredible, but it's certainly not terrible. And it's better than the Lakers, who are like 23rd in net rating since the end of the year, or since that time frame. So yeah, that's why, like I said, why I have the Lakers falling is not because a ton of faith in Pelicans or Spurs, but just because the Lakers are just such a joke.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that. All right, so let's narrow it down now. So let's focus in. Now let's talk about the actual plan. So let's talk winners, losers here. So let's go back up to the top. So let's say, this is my question. So we know the Clippers are more than likely, they're kind of locked in, right? They're locked into that 8th spot, it looks like, right? So they're going to hold on to that more in all likelihood. So regardless of whether it's the Wolves or the Nuggets in that 7th spot, my question is, will the Clippers win and beat whichever of those two teams to then lock in the 7th seed? Will the Clippers win whoever they're playing, the Wolves or Nuggets, and lock in the 7th seed?
So I think they'll lose to whoever they play, but I think they'll beat any of the 3, Lakers, Pelicans, or Spurs. I mean, the Clippers team, I mean, it's kind of impressive how well they played, considering they've pretty much lost Kawhi and Paul George for pretty much, I mean, Kawhi for the entire year, Paul George for most of the year. I mean, hovering around 500, they're well coached. They're really good, like hard-nosed on defense. They try hard. They just lack the offensive talent to really do anything. But in a do or die game, I don't see them having enough firepower to beat either the Nuggets or the Wolves. But I could definitely see them beating the Lakers, Pelicans, or Spurs and getting that 8th spot.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I kind of have them pegged to lose to whoever it is, whether it's the Wolves or the Nuggets. I think they're going to end up not grabbing that 7th spot and having to battle to make it into that final seeding. So I'm with you on that one. So
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I like Ty Lue. I think he's a great coach. And I mean, like Kawhi, I saw the report, I think it just came out yesterday, that they're not confident in Kawhi coming back, but Paul George has progressed to 4-on-4. He's cleared for contact. So maybe he comes back. I don't really know if it's worth it for him to, unless Kawhi does, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no, obviously, I mean, if you get someone like PG back, I mean, that's huge, right? I mean, then the tables have, then the odds totally change and everything changes. But like you said, big picture is you make it past the play-in and then what, right? And then is it even worth it if it's going to risk whatever, aggravating a further injury, et cetera? So that has to be a question, for even the medical team and the coaches of, is it worth bringing them back at this juncture? You just kind of let it ride with the team, the people who've been grinding it out, with Reggie and Morris, et cetera. And look, I mean, I like, a lot of their guys are like, again, like they're solid role players. You got like nice pieces. Like I'd like to have a lot of these pieces on other teams. Like, I mean, like, I almost feel like, because basically that's what you have, right? You have Kawhi out, you have PG out. So it's like you got a bunch of nice complementary role players trying to be stars, right? And that's the hard part. And, I think the one guy that drives me crazy sometimes is Terrence Mann. I'm just like, I don't know what he does some nights. I mean, some nights he does what I'm expecting him to do. And maybe I think I have this high lofty expectation of kind of what I saw at the end of last season, where he just kind of went in that little tear. There was a segment where he just played out of his mind for a few games. And I think I just have this weird bias from sports gambling and betting and still recollecting that. Because obviously I don't watch the Clippers religiously. I'm a Bulls fan, but I think I just have that imprinted in my mind. And the few times I do watch Clippers primetime games, I'm just like, dude, like you have like 2 points at the end of the half, and like you have no PG, you have no Kawhi. Like you gotta be more aggressive, man. And he drives me crazy sometimes. So guys are going to definitely have to step up if they're going to try to survive and make it past the play-in period. So
yeah, me too, man. I mean, I think everybody remembers that like 40-point game.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you kind of like, oh, like he's making a leap, and then nope. Just kidding. No, he's not. So, yeah. I mean, Reggie Jackson, I think he played well in the playoffs. I think maybe he could step up a little bit. He's kind of had an interesting career, to say the least. But he seems to have found a home in the Clippers, so good for him there. And yeah, I mean, like you said, with Kawhi and PG, this team's, I mean, one of the best in the NBA, because those role players are perfect for playing a role, but none of them are really meant to be the guy. So even if they make the playoffs, I think the 8 seed, I mean, they're no threat to the Suns. I think it'll be an annoying 5-game series for the Suns. That's my guess there.
Cool. Okay, so we both agree that regardless of who they play, the Clippers aren't going to lock in that 7th seed, and then they're going to have to play the winners of the bottom 2 play-in seeds. So here's where I'm going to divert from you, and it pains me to say this because I don't think the Lakers are good at all, honestly, but I think the Lakers will make it into the play-in, and I think LeBron will just play out of his mind, give everything he has to somehow survive the play-in, and because of LeBron by himself just playing an ungodly stretch of basketball, dropping 45 points, whatever, some absurd type of triple-double, will just carry the Lakers and slip into the 8th seed to then just get crushed in the real playoffs. But I think the Lakers... I'm going to say the Lakers will somehow survive the play-in scenario. Not just make it in, but they're going to survive and slip in, even though it pains me to say this because it's hard to say it when you watch them play, but I think LeBron is that good that he will rise to the occasion and they will just barely, by the skin of their teeth, make it into the 8th seed.
It's disgusting. I mean, I'm a LeBron guy, so I wouldn't hate to see it. I think that LeBron... I think he's gunning for the scoring title more than he's actually gunning for the Lakers to make the playoffs. I think he knows that this season's toast, and he's like, do I really want to have another easy out in the playoffs like they lost to the Suns in 6 last year?
Sure.
Although, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard much about Anthony Davis. You know, when's he supposed to come back?
Honestly, I've just stopped caring. I'm not even going to try to front like I researched. I don't even know at this point.
I don't either. Yeah, I mean, they weren't even worth my time for me to Google Anthony Davis.
That's probably the better way to say. That's probably the better way to say it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. Yeah,
exactly.
I think LeBron's like, let me rest my legs until Bronny comes to the NBA. I'll get the scoring title to have it under my belt, so I'll have a scoring title because right now I think he's still in first.
Okay.
But I just think LeBron wants no part of playing with Russell Westbrook anymore.
No, I agree with that. I mean, so I'm making this sad prediction that the Lakers will somehow actually survive and move on. So who are you pegging as slipping into that eighth? Remind me, was it the Pels or who are you taking to make that final last seed to survive the play-in?
So if the 7 through 10 end up being what I predicted, I'll take the Nuggets to beat the Clippers to be the 7th seed, and then I'll take the Pelicans to beat the Spurs to be the other play-in game, and then I think that I'll have the Clippers beating the Pelicans.
Gotcha.
So I think it ends up being the Clippers in the 8th seed.
Clippers in the 8th seed. Okay. Yeah, it's like Pels. It's hard to say, man. If it's like CJ. I mean, look, he's not Dame Lillard, but if he could just catch a heater, just knock down a bunch of threes in some of those games, facilitate. If Valanciunas just somehow, he plays out of his mind on the boards instead of just standing around the 3-point line. He reminds me of the Pelicans version of Vucevic. Sometimes I'm just like, man, just get 18, 19 boards a game. Don't just stand by the 3-point line. But if he could play like that, we'll see. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I could see them making a little bit of surprise, making some noise, making it through the play-in. So I mean, they have some pieces there. So we'll just have to see if it comes together for him. So.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. I mean, like I said, the Pelicans, a 2-14 start have been 500 since then. Yeah. So, I mean, 500 on the season gets you to be in the playoffs. So all you need to do is just beat the Clippers, who, like we said, I mean, I would take the coaching. I think of Clippers is obviously significantly better, but as far as like roster to roster talent, I mean, I like Brandon Ingram. I like CJ McCollum. Like you said, Valanciunas is good. They have some fun players like Devontae Graham's not bad. Herb Jones is not a bad rookie. So I would not be surprised if the Pelicans ended up being the 8th seed.
All right. And then the final piece of our meat and potatoes before we move on to best bets, we'll just spend 1 minute here. Will any of this matter at all? Because the Suns will just win the West. So this has all been a pointless conversation for us to have. So what do you think?
Well, does any of this matter? Probably not. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be a cakewalk for the Suns, but I do think that it'll be a cakewalk for the 1 and 2 seed beating whoever comes out.
Yeah.
So yes and no.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, I think all this battling, I don't see any of these teams upsetting the top couple seeds. So yeah, so that part I agree with. So, all right, moving on to what all the D-Gens want, best bets. All right, so today we got a handful of NBA games, NBA best bets. So we'll kick it off with we're going to do the Suns versus Nuggets game. So here, I was doing some research, and then as I was kind of looking at props, looking at other angles, news came out that first it started off as Chris Paul is probable and on track to play, to now they're saying he is playing for sure in the Suns versus Nuggets game for the late primetime game. So for me, I'm going to keep it simple. For those of you who hopped on this even before that news broke, good for you, because you probably got it much better odds than me. But right now, I'm going to keep my life simple. I had to sweat out some, Tobias Harris prop bets and Maxey prop bets yesterday that both hit luckily. But today I'm going to keep my life simple, not worry about props. And I'm just going to take Suns money line plus 100 on DraftKings. And I'm going to put $100 on that and just hope the Suns pull it off. I know that Paul may not be at full health with, his injury and stuff, but I don't really need him to shoot much. I just need him to facilitate, be the team captain. Find the spots for Ayton, for his shooters, for Booker, just facilitate, do his thing. And then I just think there might just be too much depth. I'm going to predict that the Nuggets are going to start hot like they usually do, come out strong in the first quarter or two, falter late, be a tight game, and the Suns pull it away late in the fourth. And so I'm going to go Suns money line plus 100, $100. That's my best bet for tonight.
I don't hate it. I mean, it's not very often you're getting the Suns money line with a pretty much fully healthy roster at plus money, even if it's just exactly plus money, plus 100. I like it. To be a little bit different, I will, as my dog jumps up in the background, I will take I got some player props. Two Devin Booker player props.
Oh,
one of
okay.
them I'm fading him. One of them I am backing him. So I'm taking the first one is under 2.5 3-pointers. I think Devin Booker, he's a little bit misconstrued as just like, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. He's a great player, but he actually does more damage in the mid range than people think. I think because he's almost like Chris Paul, not as good, but in the mid range. He doesn't jack up as many threes as I think people expect, just knowing how good of a scorer he is. So I have him under 2.5 threes. I got that at plus 100 on DraftKings.
Okay.
Just looking it up, he hasn't hit that in any of the last 3 games, even though he's put up great point totals. He had 28 points yesterday on only 1 3-point made. So under 2.5 3-pointers was my first one. And then my next one, I'm backing him to go over 4.5 assists. So
over 4.5 assists. Okay.
Chris Paul's back. I think people are a little too excited to back Chris Paul's props. And I think that Devin Booker, you can get some value on him. So over 4.5 assists I got on BetMGM. He's hit this in 8 of his last 10 games. He's averaging 6.5 assists in his last 10 games. So you can get that. You're getting it over 4.5. So he doesn't even need to hit the 7 number that he's kind of been averaging. He's needing to get to 5. So getting that at plus 115 odds, I liked. So 2 Devin Booker player props for my bets of the day.
Got it. And then for those of you fantasy players out there, so if you follow Fantasy Labs, just to give you some quick projections on Matt's props, they have Booker projected for whatever it's worth, 2.7 3-pointers, and they have him projected for about 5 assists. So for those of you who like following these kind of fantasy projections from fantasy tools, that's what Fantasy Labs is saying right now. So pretty solid. I like the place. I'll probably sprinkle a little just so I can root with you as my co-host, and we can sweat this together and sweat those bets. All right, so those were our best bets. We got 2 Booker props. We got a simple Suns money line play. Before we wrap up, so we're heading into the weekend, just one more day before the weekend starts. So what do you got cooking for this weekend?
Well, aside from watching an obscene amount of college basketball, NCAA tournament, one of my old roommates is his birthday is actually today. Who I haven't wished him happy birthday, so thanks myself to the reminder. Celebrating his birthday on Saturday, so that's what I'll be doing on Saturday. But other than that, I will be parked on the couch watching college basketball.
Nice.
What about you?
All right, me. Let's see. I got play dates for my kid, my 6-year-old son, Tyler. So got some play dates lined up for him.
Nice.
Hopefully I'll try to be present in the moment and not just staring at my phone like a total degenerate father and ignoring my son. So I'll try my best to do that and be attentive to my son. Getting into some, more nitty gritty of planning out my Vegas trip that'll be coming up in a couple weeks. So I'm going to be making sure I'm going to be live streaming a little bit and posting some stuff on TikTok. So planning out more details of where we're going to eat, which buffets and restaurants we're going to hit. So if you guys out there got some recommendations for me on some buffets that are your favorite, let me know. But I'll probably be posting some stuff while I'm there at some of the sports books live. So I'll be posting heartbreak, I'm sure, to some degree, hopefully some winners. So I'll make sure to post and tag some people while we're doing some bets out there. But yeah, that's it. Some more Vegas planning, some play dates for my kid, and hopefully all of us, you, me, we hit some wagers together as we banter together on social media. So
I love it. The only Vegas advice I have is go to the Taco Bell Cantina. You won't regret it.
Gotcha.
It's the best Taco Bell in America.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining Sweat the Bet for episode 4. As always, you can find this and download this on any major podcast platform. You can check out the replay of this on YouTube. Follow us on social media, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram. We are everywhere. So we appreciate the support. Good luck if you tail our bets today, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.